Hello guys, welcome back to Lace's Forbidden Entries, where I read RPG horror stories and we react. Today's horror story is going to be a long one. It's 8 parts and I thought it'd be best to just put it into one video, so if you enjoy it, you could just listen to the whole thing instead of having to wait for the next part. It was given permission by Dystopian6160 on Reddit, and it's called My First Ever Campaign, a misery that lasted 1 year. Hello everyone, I would like to share my story with you. Warning, English is not my first language, so I might make words or grammar mistakes, and my writing might not be as good as I want it to be. I have always dreamt of playing D&D since I was a teenager. Unfortunately, I was very shy and friendless in my youth, so I couldn't find a group. As the years passed, I gave up on that dream and completely forgot about this. The story begins in April 2023. I am 31 years old. I have watched the movie D&D Honor Among Thieves in a movie theater with a group of friends. My wish to find a group and to live an epic adventure shines once more. A longtime friend of mine, let's call him Joe, wants to play D&D as well, so we decide to find a D&D group together. 1 week later, Joe announces me that his coworker was currently seeking 2 players to join his D&D group. Obviously, I agree to join on the spot. Joe gives me the DM's phone number. We will call him Jake. I contact Jake and we make a phone call. Jake seemed to be very passionate about D&D, available and willing to answer any questions that I might ask. He presented himself as a 10-year-long experienced player and DM in D&D. He also presented himself as being chaotic neutral. We spent hours discussing about the rules in the campaign. We will play D&D 5th edition. At that time, he was already running the same campaign with another group for 2 years and a half. Me. 2 years and a half? Do we need to play as long in order to finish the campaign? Jake. This is a very long campaign. They are not even close to finishing it, but that's because we play once per month. He then tells me that he homebrewed a huge world in which we will have freedom to go where we please, do as we want. Sounds fun. I thought it was a sandbox campaign. How wrong I was. Then he tells me about the characters in the group. With Joe, we are 5 players. The other 3 players are Dave, the warlock, Joe's friend and co-worker. Minerva, the monk, Dave's wife. Butters, the warrior, Dave's longtime friend. Everyone is in his earlier mid-30s in this group. They have already done 2 sessions, and their characters will soon arrive in a port city. This is where our characters will all meet. All of them are beginners too. They had their first ever session 2 months ago and just turned level 2. Yeah, the campaign is 1 session per month. Regarding the campaign, he told me he runs a deadly difficult campaign. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant by deadly, so I asked him. Jake, it means that the fights and encounters are over deadly, but don't worry, you guys will start in beginner's difficulty for the first 4 or 5 sessions. Once you've learned the rules and how your character works, this is gonna be fun. At the time, I didn't say anything because I thought he knew what he was doing, but I couldn't help but ask myself, why did he not seek experienced or veteran players if he wants to run a deadly campaign? Also, after we spent some time discussing about the rules and seeing the 180 pages long document about the basic rules, I was very skeptical about me learning the rules in only 4 or 5 sessions, yet being able to play at deadly difficulty. But regardless, I was willing to give it a try. Jake. By the way, we need a healer. I still don't know what Joe is going to do, so I think it's going to be you. Me. To be honest, I wanted to play a wizard. Is there a wizard subclass capable of healing? Jake. Unfortunately no, but I can create one. This is how my first ever character, a level 2 homebrewed white wizard, was created. The DM created a new magic school. That was very cool of him, and I was very excited to start playing. Session 1. 1 week later, we meet up in Dave and Minerva's house for our first session together. Everyone seems to be amicable, polite, and easygoing. Joe ended up playing a cleric. Our characters meet in a port city. Let's call it Sea City. A demon is burning alive citizens, and some political figures have promised 5,000 gold for anyone who manages to kill it. We make a lot of roleplay, we joke a lot, and then the first issue begins. The dice rolls, the rules, and the character sheets. We all struggle to figure out what dice to roll, so it always puts a pause in the game anytime Jake asks for it. He takes his time to explain, but he loses patience very fast. He ended up comparing us all to his child. Or two children. The tone was friendly, of course, but not friendly enough in my taste. We end the session by fighting a goblin horde who invade the city. We fight alongside a lot of NPCs. Despite nearly dying, we managed to defeat them by making allied NPCs target the chiefs and the banners. I quickly realized that all of the NPCs who fought with us were rivals for the hunt of the demon, and all of them were a lot stronger than any of the players. Session 2 begins. Me, Dave, and Minerva start to learn how our characters work, but we still struggle sometimes. However, Joe and Butters both struggle a lot more. Jake is more insistent about comparing us to children. I could tell he was very frustrated. We ally with one of the rivals' NPC, a level 5 ranger, at least since he could attack 2 times in a round. Mind you, we are level 2. We ended up killing the demon, who screamed that Minerva was a traitor. It turns out that Minerva's character has amnesia and isn't talkative at all, so I start doubting her. The same thing happens with Dave, who has a connection with a mysterious patron. Dave refuses to tell us his name, but asks us to follow him in his path. Again, I start doubting him as well. Session 3. Joe didn't come to play this day. The DM brought his girlfriend to watch us play. We will call her Susie. I don't mind her at all, despite she wasn't invited. She is not a player. Yet. The issue with Susie, she intervenes. A lot. And breaks the immersion, even telling us what to do sometimes. The story progresses. We took the demon's head and make our way back to the city. We get betrayed by the ranger, but we managed to capture him. We then got robbed by 2 other NPCs, but managed to keep the demon's head. We finally get paid 5,000 gold. But there's an issue. The golds are fake and completely useless. The political figures that we talked to and who promised us the 5,000 gold were actually imposters. We then realize there is a plot to kill some noble families in Sea City. One of his members comes to us and asks for help and a promise of a large sum. We accept to protect her, but then we are pursued by 2 high-leveled assassins, both level 14 according to the DM. We nearly died, but we escaped on a ship with the help of a captain who owns it. Session 4. Joe didn't come to play again. It turns out that the captain who helped us was actually a pirate. Shocker! He holds us hostage on this ship with his dozen mind-controlled minions and didn't take the direction that we expected. He was driving us to a strange, isolated island. We ended up killing him nonetheless. That's where our first argument happened. You see, Jake expects Dave to do a lot of damage. However, Dave's playstyle is more focused on him staying alive. So Jake was angry and told him that we almost TPK'd because of Dave's mistakes. At this point, I no longer struggle with my character, but Dave and Minerva still need time to figure out what to do. Butters, however, is struggling a lot with the rules and the dice. Jake has enough and starts making passive-aggressive remarks towards him. Jake, the tutorial is going to end soon, but you guys are not ready. You take too much time to progress in the story. We wanted to get back to Sea City, but Dave's patron wanted us to continue to the island. At this point, I am extremely suspicious towards Dave, so I start asking questions. This is where the first remark came from Jake toward me. You are too paranoid, OP. Am I paranoid or am I reacting accordingly? In a world where we constantly get betrayed. I wonder. This is where we reached level 3. Session 5. This time, it's my turn to miss a session. I was extremely sick. I couldn't get up out of bed. The only thing I know is the session went pretty bad. Jake lost his temper, Dave too. 3 days later, Jake called me on my phone and told me what happened during the session. It seems that the group reached this strange island and found a dungeon on it. However, they made no progress at all according to him. They only expected 1 or 2 rooms in 3 hours. He is extremely frustrated towards Joe and Butters, who constantly struggle with their dice rolls and how to play their characters. On his side, Joe told me that he doesn't want to do another session like this. He said that this is supposed to be a fun game, but it's too stressful to enjoy it, according to him. I can't agree more with him, but how can we satisfy the expectation of everyone? Maybe there is some progress we can make. Dave, after discussing with me, decides to help his fellow players, because Jake doesn't have time and has an adult life. He makes a very good summary of the basic rules, the dices, and the calculation to make them. He even spent time with Joe and Butters to help them learn the rules. A few days later, it has been decided that Joe will no longer play a cleric, because Joe struggles too much with the difficulty of his character. He will now play a rogue. Jake asked me to help him make his new character sheet. Joe decides to play an assassin rogue as a subclass. Jake: no, not assassin, it sucks. Me: huh? Okay. Thief then? It was his second choice. Jake: no, it's not good enough. Jake decided to make Joe's character a swashbuckler rogue. Session 6. Butters doesn't come to play this time. Susie takes his character sheet to play the character. I finally discover what the dungeon is about. A lot of traps everywhere, and monsters. Every action we make, we need to be very specific about what we say. For instance, we need to say specifically that we act without making noise in order to roll a stealth check. Otherwise, we make no rolls and we are instantly punished. No wonder we take a lot of time to progress. It's our first dungeon after all. Sometimes, Jake does everything to make us doubt ourselves. Jake, with a concerned look: OP, I think you should not step here, but rather here. Me: oh, okay, then I walk here. Jake, with a grin: you activated a trap. Make a dex saving throw. So yeah, not only I can't trust most NPCs, even some of the PCs, now I learned in this dungeon that I can't trust Jake himself, who seems to be a sadist. We also met a strange NPC, in armor with a knight spirit. Susie, controlling Butters' character, accepted to become his squire, and I have become officially the buffoon? I didn't want to be called like that, of course, but whatever. I said it didn't change the NPC's mind. This is our first ally. Session 7. Everyone is here. We finally reached the end of the dungeon, and guess what? It turns out that the 2 previous assassins that we escaped from in Sea City were here. The patron of Dave is none other than the BBEG. Dave had no idea about it and thought his patron was someone else. The BBEG was waiting for us, and all his allies are also here. It also turns out that the master of my character was here, allied with the BBEG. Jake did not tell me beforehand, of course, that he would make some changes in my lore. Edit. When I wrote my background, I was supposed to investigate for a rumored artifact by the order of my master. That's why my character became an adventurer in the first place. But Jake has decided without telling me that this quest was fake all along, and my master betrayed me and sold me to the BBEG. We end up being tortured and imprisoned for eternity. Session ends. A few days pass, and we receive a call from Jake. His wife Susie wants to join us. We accept, and now we are 6 players. She will play a ranger. A very special one, apparently. But most importantly, the tutorial is now over. He prepared a one-shot session in which we will face our first deadly encounter as a test. TLDR, D&D 5th edition. Players are all beginners. DM is a 10-year-old veteran and is frustrated that we don't learn the rules fast enough, that we don't advance in the story fast enough, that we don't play well enough. We are railroaded into being played or betrayed. My first ever campaign, A Misery That Lasted 1 Year, Part 2. Hello everyone, and thanks in advance for reading this. This is the second part of my story. If you want to read the first part, it's here. Again, I would like to say that English isn't my first language, so I might make mistakes in my writing. I am aware that the story is very long, but I use this as a therapeutic means to let go of my frustration and disappointment. Here's the cast. Me, the wizard and healer, homebrew. Joe, the rogue, a longtime friend of mine. Dave, the warlock, Joe's friend and ex-co-worker. Minerva, the monk, Dave's wife. Butters, the warrior, Dave's friend. Jake, the DM, self-proclaimed veteran player and DM. Susie, the ranger, Jake's wife. Jake has decided to make a one-shot session in between the campaign. His aim is to show us what a deadly encounter is. We have only done 7 sessions at this point, and we all started as beginners. We are level 4, and Susie will play her first ever session in that one-shot. But 3 days before, I received a text message from Jake. He wants to nerf my character. The class that he made for me is too strong for his taste, so he asked me to figure out together what modification we will make. To put it simply, my wizard works like an average wizard, but instead of having a school specialization, such as illusion or transmutation, he can memorize some healing spells. He also has an ability that he can use twice per long rest. It allows him to cast a healing spell that regenerates a very small amount of HP each turn for 10 turns. I reminded him that without that ability, we would have 100% TPK'd at the very first session. Jake: yeah, but I still want to nerf it. I don't like it. There are a lot of homebrewed subclasses on internet, so I figured I may find something interesting. I find a homebrew wizard subclass that matches the lore of my character, so I send it to Jake, telling him this is how I view my character. Jake: no, it's garbage. You will become useless. I send him another one. Jake: no, it's not good enough. A third one. Jake: no, that's not what I want to do with your character. I thought we were supposed to figure this out together. I hid my frustration and just told him it's fine, and to contact me again once he finds out what to do. The next day he calls me and tells me what has changed. He changed the ability. Now it can be used 5 times per rest. It heals the same amount of HP than before, but lasts 5 turns. It can also give damage resistance from now on. He then went on a tirade, complaining how he doesn't have time to do all this, that he has an adult life. He's a parent, so he shouldn't put as much time on this. I will certainly understand once I become a parent as well, he said. Jake: one day you will understand what it means to be an adult. I am 31 and he is 34. Yeah, I do not have kids, and I was single, but that doesn't make him superior to me when it comes to being an adult. What's wrong with this guy? And he is the one who wanted to nerf my character. He is the one who made this homebrew subclass in the first place. Unfortunately, I didn't say anything. I just told him that we could abandon this homebrew class and make me become a cleric or a bard if he wants, so he won't have to spend time balancing my character. Jake: nope, it's fine. We keep things like that. I want to see how it works. We'll probably nerf it again in the future if needed, though. Me: okay then, but remember, I didn't force you to do this. A few days later, the one-shot session is about to begin. This time, we do not meet in real life. We play on Foundry, for the first time ever. But there is an issue. A big one. Joe and Butters canceled a few hours before. Jake maintained the session nonetheless and gave their characters to us. So Dave will control Butters' character, and I will control Joe's character. The session begins. Not only do we have to figure out how Foundry works, I also need to figure out how to play a rogue. We are all aware that the incoming fight will be extremely difficult. I already feel anxious and overwhelmed. I didn't even want to play, but here we are. Maybe 2 players didn't come to play for the same reasons. Who knows? We had a mission. There is a warehouse in which lies shady activities. We had to defeat the occupants to put it to an end. It's midnight. There is a lookout in front of the entrance. We do our best to avoid him and recon around the warehouse to get as much information that we can. There is a door in front and another in the back. At some point, we managed to put Susie and Joe's character on the roof of the warehouse, so they could peek to the inside with a window. We discovered there were at least 16 people in it, all enemies, of course. We also discovered that there is a lot of types of enemies, such as a bard, a swashbuckler, and even a barbarian who seemed to be the boss. Yeah, this is the day we learned that Jake built his NPCs with a player character sheet. The barbarian boss has a dark aura. Thanks to an arcana check, we discover that he can reflect any damage done against him. We have no idea how we are supposed to fight. We argue a lot until Jake loses patience and forces us to act. We decide first to kill the lookout as discreetly as possible. It took the combined attacks of 4 of us to bring him down to 0 HP, according to Jake. We have done 27 damage. Me: so all the enemies inside are as strong as this guy? Jake: he was the weakest, actually. I realize there's more HP than most of us at level 4. Joe has only 22 HP, Minerva 24, and Susie 25. We then collectively failed our stealth check and the fight is about to begin. Completely panicked, we kill another guy who went to check the door where the lookout was. I decided to hide inside of a house just in front of the warehouse. Joe's character and Susie are left on the roof, both of them waiting to shoot the first guy who comes out. The first turn passes. No enemy goes outside. The same thing happens during the second turn. Nothing. Dave, huh? What's happening? Why is nobody coming out? Silence. Jake doesn't respond. Me, is there something we misunderstood? Jake, I am winning strategically. Change your plans or you will die. Me, what do you mean? Jake, they won't go to the front door if they know there are archers on the roof. Use your brains. Susie decides to go watch inside of the warehouse once again through the window. We realize that half of the enemies are moving to the back and not in the front. They seem to know where we are, and they plan to surround us and attack those on the roof. She tries to cast Fog Cloud. Unfortunately, one of the enemies spotted her and used his reaction to attack her with a crossbow before she can cast it. She fails her constitution check, so she can't cast her spell. I realize now that Jake was also bullshitting the rules. Then some enemies go to the roof to attack Susie and Joe's characters. Both of them are already near death. Jake, make a constitution save, those who hide in the house. Me, Dave, and Minerva. Huh? Why? Then Jake describes that the bard opened the front door, saw us through the window of the house, and cast Shatter. Then goes inside the warehouse and closes the door. Me, but I thought they wouldn't go through the front door. Jake, they are organized. Me, it's midnight, and he's able to see us? Silence. Jake, did you use stealth to hide? Did you say you hid somewhere? Me, no. Jake, then he can see all of you. Was Jake metagaming against us? Yes, he definitely was. Fortunately, I had no idea at the time. I didn't even know what metagaming was. I just felt that it was incredibly unfair, that's all. I didn't know what challenge rating or CR was either. Most of our enemies had been between 1 and 4 CR. The barbarian was probably 9 or 10. This fight was not deadly. It was over deadly. Me and Dave called an end to the session. We didn't want to continue, and we were both pissed. Minerva was about to cry, and Susie was frustrated. Jake told us that we were not good enough, not strategic enough, and we panicked for nothing. This is where we should have parted ways. Unfortunately, we didn't, and we agreed to stay in the campaign. He convinced us that things would get better as we gained more experience. It will not get better. At all. Also, Jake and Susie chose that moment to announce us that Susie was pregnant. Susie, who just joined our group, reassured us, told us her pregnancy will go just fine, and it will never negatively impact the campaign. Oh really? Unfortunately, it will. Thanks a lot for reading with me. In the next part, we will continue the main story of the campaign. Railroading, metagaming, punishing, and gaslighting. This is what will happen next. The warehouse one-shot session ended before we could die. However, Jake has decided it was a TPK. There were a lot of back and forth. We told him this fight was way too difficult for us. His answer? Jake, my other group managed to beat it, so it's perfectly feasible. You guys are just not strategic enough. You never set up flanking, for instance. You see Jake as another group, a group of long-time friends of his, for which he runs the same campaign for almost 3 years. So they are 2 years ahead of us. From now on, every time we will complain or tell him it's too difficult, he will answer, the other group did it, you should be able to do the same. He will also make a lot of comparison, telling us how the other group is smarter and quicker. While I am writing this, I still can't believe we put up with this for so long. I definitely hold myself accountable at this point. I asked Jake if the other group were all beginners just like us. Jake, their warlock is a veteran just like me. Their paladin was already experienced too. 3 others were beginners. Me, so our situation is not the same. Jake, yes it is. 3 of them were beginners. They learned pretty fast, and now they know how to play their characters. I tried to explain to him the dynamic can't be the same if at least 1 or 2 players are experienced in their group. He did not listen. Jake, my main issue is you guys take too much time to learn the rules and how to play your characters. Susie, who just joined, has learned faster than any of you. Me, well, obviously, each individual learns at their own pace. The back and forth lasted for an hour. We revealed later that the warlock of the other group seems to be a power gamer. Apparently he is a hexblade with warrior multiclass. He bragged about how he killed one of the bosses in 1 turn by himself. I also learned that Jake tried to convince Dave to make the same build for months, but he has always refused. Jake tries one more time until Dave completely snaps and yells at him. No, he will not multiclass into a warrior. How many times must he say that? Our call ends with the issue of Butters and Joe. They missed too many sessions, and Jake is considering kicking them, so he asked Dave to have a discussion with them. We almost ended the campaign here, but Jake assured us that things will get better. Unfortunately, we were foolish enough to trust his words. A few days later, Butters leaves the campaign. Hello? Dave told me that Butters didn't like the campaign at all. He doesn't like Jake either, because he was rude to him. Butters was too afraid of confrontation to say so. That's why he didn't say anything until now. Joe, however, is struggling with his work, health, and family. That's why he missed so many sessions. He told me that he cares more about hanging out with us than playing the campaign itself. We are now 5 players. We could have been fine to continue like this. However, Jake asked us to recruit a new player who would play a paladin or a warrior, because according to him, we need a tank, and someone who can wear the magical armor that we got on the island. This armor is very important for the plot, apparently. I am about to do my worst mistake. Yes, I invited a longtime friend of mine, hoping that his presence would make the game more enjoyable. I still regret this to this day. Sorry, dude. Connor, friend to both me and Joe, will join for the 8th session and play a paladin. A few days before the 8th session starts, I spend some time with him to help him learn the rules and how to play his character. There's one issue though. He has only 31 HP at level 4, despite having 18 constitution. I call Jake, asking him why he has so few HP. Jake, well, he hasn't been lucky with the dice. Me, but 31 HP for a tank is in a deadly campaign. Maybe you should allow him to roll once more. Jake, no, don't worry, he has at least 20 AC. He is fine the way he is. Connor makes a decision to take the lucky feed in case he takes critical hits. Session 8. We wake up, still on the island after the BBEG imprisoned us in a magical prison that was supposed to last for eternity. Dave is the one who liberated us, breaking the prison with a strange two-handed sword. He is now a hexblade and seems to have made a new pact. However, he refuses to tell us who he made a pact with. We will learn later that Dave actually doesn't know who his new patron is, and Jake has imposed it on him. I don't trust his character anymore since his previous pact was with the BBEG. I try to make an arcana check on his blade to figure if the blade was evil or not. I roll a natural 20. For the context in this campaign, when we roll a 1, some disaster will happen, such as breaking a weapon or injuring an ally. On the other hand, if we roll a 20, the opposite is supposed to happen. Jake, Dave, roll your weapon's damage. Dave, why? I did not make an attack. Jake, just do it. Dave, 14 damage. Jake, OP, you take 14 damage from the blade. The blade defended itself since you discovered who it might be. Me, okay, fine, then who is it? Jake, you don't know. Just before you discovered who it was, the blade has made you forget everything. Me, you're telling me that I took 14 damage for nothing? How am I supposed to trust Dave's character now, after his blade attacked me? Jake, you don't remember you got attacked either. I then try to ask the other players how their characters react when they see me getting attacked by the blade. Jake, they don't remember. Nobody remembers. Me, what? But why? Yeah, the blade has made you all forget about this. Me, so my character took 14 damage and nobody knows why? Jake, yeah. I got angry for the first time. I complained to Jake and told him that it was unfair. He made it look like I rolled a 1 at this point. Why make me roll a dice in the first place? Besides, how is my character supposed to trust any of his companions after everything that happened? I have no idea what's going on at this point. Jake, roll for intelligence. Don't forget, your character is very intelligent. He knows he must ally with them, because they're the only ones who know about the BBEG. Yeah, from now on, every time I will argue with Jake in-game, he'll tell me to roll for intelligence. The argument kept going. Jake explained to me that I succeeded so well with my arcana check that the blade had to react. I told him if it was doomed to fail, why make me roll a dice? Is there anything he can reward me instead of punishing me? I was so pissed I almost tried to sabotage the game by making my character check the blade again and again until he dies, because he forgot he did. But I didn't want to ruin the experience for the other players. Plus, they all seemed to agree with Jake and they told me to let it go. Out of frustration, I said that until Dave's character and mine have a discussion, I will not trust him. Therefore, I will not heal him. I know I shouldn't have reacted like this, but at this point I was done being played all the time. The noble we were supposed to escort and protect was dead. So was the reward. We meet a crazy and very powerful mage NPC who teleports us back to Sea City. We realize that 6 months have passed in the game. Sea City is now blockaded by a strange huge ship, raided by orcs and surrounded by hordes of zombies. Butter's character leaves our group telling us we are crazy and he wants to go back to his family. We decide to go to the tavern, and this is where we meet Susie and Connor's characters for the first time. We spend time making our presentations and discussing the situation at Sea City until the city is under attack by a group of orcs. End of session. TLDR, DM runs a deadly campaign for beginners, brushes their criticism, and expects them to win because another group composed by at least 2 experienced players did. Also, DM punished me for making a natural 20 when I tried to check if the warlock's weapon was evil. Every time we meet up at Dave and Minerva's house, we usually spend 1 hour to eat and to do chit-chat before playing D&D. That's where we learned that Jake recently removed from a group in which he was a player. According to him, the issue started when he brought Susie with him. Susie was not a player, so she just watched them play. That's exactly what happened with us before she joined. This has continued for maybe 3 or 4 sessions until the other players had enough and tried to ask Jake to stop bringing her because she is not a player and it breaks immersion. The way he described his interactions with them, I know for a fact they tried to talk to him in the most respectful way possible. I remember the first time he brought Susie into our game as a spectator. He did not ask permission from neither our whole group nor our host, Dave and Minerva. I assumed he did the same with the other group, so I asked him to clarify. I don't remember what he answered, however. I do remember that feeling he did not answer to my question and deflected. According to Jake, one of the players was jealous of his happiness with Susie and was bothered because he recently got divorced. They were both friends, but this guy's betrayed Jake, according to him. We took his word at face value at the time. However, now that I think about this, I can't help but think that this is insane. Jake had so many red flags, and we were blind. Anyway, Jake has eventually stopped responding to them, and he didn't come to their other games. He told us they didn't wait long to replace him. Session 9. We kill and get rid of the orcs without struggle. Susie reveals to us some information. She is a Drake Warden Ranger, and she is aware about the BBEG. She tells us that the BBEG has extended his influence in all the main nations of the continent. We don't have much time, and we need to leave Sea City so we can go to Watermark, a nearly huge port city which is falling prey to the BBEG's minions. But before that, we decide to free Sea City from the orcs, so we pursue them on a boat. We land near to their base and manage to infiltrate it. At some point, the orcs become our allies thanks to deceit. Connor can speak orc, so he disguised himself as one and slew their chief to take his place. Then Connor goes alone ahead of us and meets a prisoner. His name is Jackie. He is a halfling, and it turns out he is a pirate and the owner of the huge ship blockading Sea City. For some reasons, he got captured by the orcs while attacking Sea City. Connor doesn't trust him, so Jackie makes the proposition to make a blood pact with him. The bargain is, he provides us his ship, but we need to give him back his amulet. He can't survive long without it. And to do some ritual to retrieve an artifact near the orc's base. Connor seems lost and doesn't know what to do. Jake keeps pushing and tries his hardest to convince him. At the time, none of us really knew how the paladin works, so we didn't know or remember about his oath. Connor is playing his second session ever, and Jake did not give him any chance to remember either. He ends up saying yes. Session ends, and Jake tells Connor there will be bad consequences for his character because he didn't respect his oath. I got pissed at Jake and reproached him. He did nothing to prevent that. He could have at least guided Connor or make him roll a dice to give him a chance. Connor said it was fine, but I still apologized to him because I am the one who invited him in this game. Session 10. Joe did not play this day. The other characters meet with Jackie. His amulet is in our possession, but we want to talk to him a bit before giving it back. We realized he was already mentioned before. Remember about the pirates with a mind-controlled crew who almost kidnapped us in Session 4? He sang a song in abyssal language mentioning a powerful and dangerous pirate, a halfling who travels the sea with hundreds of souls on his legendary ship. It's definitely him. Both me and Dave decide to openly not trust Jackie. We start asking a lot of questions to make sure he will not betray us or do anything shady. He never responds directly to our questions, stays vague as much as he can. We end up refusing to ally with him. Jake, remember that your character is intelligent. You know the paladin made a blood pact with him. Me, my character has a neutral good alignment and doesn't want to ally with someone who starved a city to death with his blockade. Jake, in this game, alignment doesn't matter that much. He just knows that's the best solution. Me, but how is it a good solution? We have been betrayed and played many times. Another evil pirate mentioned him before. I'd rather find another solution rather than take this guy's ship. Jake, there are no other solutions. Me, what do you mean? Jake, Sea City is surrounded by zombies and blockaded by the ship. The only solution is to ally with Jackie. Me, but can't we just attack and destroy the ship with the orcs and villagers? Or even better, take it? Jake, nope. The ship is magical and can defend on its own. You'll get killed. Me, can't we rally both the villagers and the orcs and cut our way through the zombies until we arrive at Watermark? Sea City is starved anyway. Jake, nope, there are too much zombies. Me, what about building our own ship? Jake, nope, you guys can't. Me, how about traveling through the coast? Jake, nope. Me, is there anything we can do besides allying with Jackie? Jake, nope. The only possible way for us was to ally with a pirate that our characters are not supposed to trust. We ended up giving him back his amulet. This got argumentative. Susie sided with Jake, saying she trusts Jackie because Connor made a blood pact with him, and that's the most logical way to react. I responded to her this argument doesn't stand since the player of this paladin is a beginner and doesn't know his character yet. An average player would have never made that choice. Our characters just met Connor, so actually we should rather be suspicious towards him for making such a pact with this pirate, and she knows it. Minerva, for some reason, sided with Jake and Susie because she trusts Jackie thanks to the knowledge she has about him. Has she shared it with us? Of course not, because that's what her character would have done. Jake gets pissed and tells me he almost used Dominate spell on my character because I and Dave asked too many questions and acted too hostile towards his character. We stop the argument and the game resumes. We follow Jackie and get to the strange place we are supposed to make a ritual so he can get the artifact. But something else happened. It turns out this ritual also awakened and released a lich and a zombie dragon from their ice prison. We flee with Jackie, and we watch both of these monsters fly to Sea City and destroy it, killing everyone. Once they are done, they fly once again to the north and disappear. We manage to get to the ship with Jackie. I asked Jackie if he knew the outcome of this ritual. Jake smiles to me and says, yes. The session ends. We discuss a little bit about the end of the session, and Jake reveals to us that Jackie is actually a self-insert. Jake, isn't your character's family located to the north? Me. Yeah. What about them? Jake. I am thinking about killing them off since they might cross paths with the Lich and the zombie dragon. And here we go. I get punished once again for a choice that I didn't want to make. At this point, my trust towards Jake is shattering. This is the first time I seriously considered quitting the game. I have a discussion with all the other players except Susie. Unfortunately, they don't share my frustration and disappointed. Dave is quite frustrated too, but he doesn't mind. Joe doesn't care much about the game, but enjoys the social aspect. Connor understands my point of view, but is willing to continue. Minerva sides with Jake because her character has information that we don't. I even tried to have a discussion with Jake. I complained about the railroading. I also complained about him planning to kill the family of my character. He told me to wait for the progression of the story, that it will not be as railroaded in the future. Like an idiot, I thought I have overreacted and chose to stay. TLDR, DM leaves another group in which he is a player because the other players asked him to no longer bring his wife, who is not a player. DM railroads my group into allying with his self-insert DM PC and punishes us for making choices we wouldn't have made. When session 10 ended, we left Sea City on Jackie's ship. Minerva and Susie revealed to us out of character that their PCs had a discussion. Minerva's character suffers from amnesia, and sometimes Jake allows her to remember something about the plot. 3 months ago, she was told about a prophecy in form of a puzzle. She made the choice to not say anything to the party and tried to solve all the things by herself, but she struggled a lot. However, for some unknown reasons, she told everything to Susie's character, who recently joined the party, and they solved the puzzle together. Have they explained to us what they discovered? No. Because according to them, they want us to put our mind into it out of the game, the same way they did. When I asked Jake if me, Connor, Joe, and Dave have the knowledge required to solve it, he answered no. I got really frustrated and argued that Minerva should have solved the puzzle with the entire group in the first place. I told them to just explain the prophecy already, but they didn't want to. Our discussion ended here, and Minerva still wanted us to resolve the puzzle before the next session. This is stupid. This is so stupid, it frustrated me like hell. I made my first Reddit post to talk about the situation, because at this point, I didn't know if I was crazy or not. Most Redditors told me to leave ASAP, and some others told me to stay and see what happens. I did the latter. It turns out this prophecy is all about Dave's character transporting in his blade a very powerful soul. With his blade, he shall travel to many places and slay the BBEG and his minions. I realized Jake has lied to me when he promised the game would not be railroaded in the future. There can't be anything more railroading than a damn prophecy. Me, are we obligated to follow this prophecy? Must we do everything the prophecy tells us to do? Jake, yeah, you guys can make the choice to not follow it, but if you make such a choice, you will be in huge trouble. Sigh. I also take the opportunity to tell Minerva that we are a team and we are supposed to talk to each other in-game. Minerva responds she was lost with the information Jake has provided to her, and since she is extremely shy, she didn't know how to talk to us. Session 11. Minerva almost died. She tried to tell Dave, who was his patron. The blade reacted. Dave lost control of his character and attacked her until we joined them. Dave's patron is none other than the soul of the Holy Emperor, leader of the most powerful country of the continent. It seems that his soul is in hiding and doesn't want to be discovered. That's why he attacked me and Minerva. It's also revealed later that the Holy Emperor, the magical armor, Jackie, Minerva, and the demon we killed at Sea City are all heroes from the past. They defeated the BBEG once, 800 years ago. All of them had to sacrifice something in order to prevail. There are other heroes, but we need to reunite all of them first. But when we try to ask questions, Minerva doesn't remember. The Holy Emperor doesn't respond because he is too weak to talk to us. And the magical armor doesn't know. And Jackie can't talk because he has a curse that prevents him to do so. And the demon who is now in Dave's body refuses to talk unless Dave allows him to take control of his body. Of course, Dave refuses because he made it perfectly clear that his character refuses to be controlled by anything. The only way forward is now Watermark. Session ends. It's March 2024. Susie is pregnant 5 months already, and the first issues start. Jake will non-stop remind us about Susie's pregnancy and make us feel bad about it. We don't have time. We have an adult life. Do you guys remember that my wife is pregnant? Etc. Yeah, we know that. However, the issue is that they are the ones who engage with us. We did everything we could to leave them alone. At some point, we even tried to tell them many times to pause the campaign so they could focus on themselves. But they always refused, telling us that everything was fine. This kind of abuse would repeat over and over again. Jake also told us that the next session will probably be the last time Susie can come to play. He decides to make another one-shot session in between the campaign. It's also a very deadly encounter, and we play this time on Foundry and Discord. We connect. Nothing out of the ordinary happens until Susie and Jake just join Discord with a third party. That's right, they have decided that their 8-year-old daughter would play with us as Susie's pet. None of us knew. They didn't ask us. At first, me, Dave, Minerva, Joe, and Connor were all silent, confused. Jake, you guys are not cool. You should say hi to our daughter. This session was beyond miserable. We had to give special attention to her until she rapidly lost focus and wanted to do some other things. You know, like any child of her age. I have nothing against children, however, I've never signed up to play with a child in a D&D game. At some point, our characters had to free a fort from orcs, so we spent time trying to figure out how to infiltrate it. Their daughter drew a plan. Both Jake and Susie pushed hard so that we followed their daughter's plan. Unfortunately for them, we chose to do something else. We barely survived, until it was time to call an end to the session. Jake declared it a TPK nonetheless, because our plan sucked according to him, and we would have lost if we kept playing it to the end. We spent 1 hour arguing with Jake and Susie about what we should have done or not. They made it sound like their daughter is able to make a better plan than all of us combined. Me and the other players collectively pointed out Jake's arbitrary nature and unfairness. We would eventually end our call. For the first time, it was clear that no one was happy. A few weeks later, Dave asks the group about our meal for the next session. I still have the conversation on my phone, so I can translate it. Dave, hello everyone. For the next weekend at our house, would you mind if I make salmon pasta with beetroot sauce and parmesan? Otherwise, I have other recipes aside. Jake, for me, yes, but we have to see if Susie can. Susie, hello, cooked or smoked salmon? Smoked. I won't have it if it's not cooked. Pasta. I can. Dave, counter proposal. Pasta gratin with mushrooms, green beans, onions, guare, I don't know, sliced chicken cutlet with our sour cream, sauce, and veal stock. Or Minerva can cook meat turnovers for you. Susie, don't change everything because of that. If the smoked salmon isn't cooked, I just don't eat it. Jake, Dave, you have to understand that Susie cannot eat uncooked meat or fish. Dave, in the meat turnovers, everything is cooked. Susie, I'm such a bore when it comes to food. I can always grab something to eat by myself. Minerva, oh, are you sure you want to do that? Susie, well yeah, between the foods that no longer fit, those that I can't eat, it's difficult. Dave, if you want to bring something to heat, you can. We have a microwave. Jake, this is probably the last time for a long time that Susie will be able to come. I think we can make an effort for her, right? Susie, nah, but it's me who says I can bring it something. Minerva, we repeat, it's up to your preferences. We will make food for everyone anyway. We even have an oven to heat your own food if you want. Susie, but the dish just without salmon is fine with me. Dave, okay, so are we going with that? Is it okay for everyone? The two couples would have a call a few hours after this conversation, but I wasn't there. I didn't pay attention at the time because I was working when the whole thing happened. I know that both Dave and Jake were pissed at each other. The next day, Jake and Susie called me and tried to convince me that it was Dave's fault for not listening. However, when I read the whole conversation, my jaw dropped. This is nothing but toxicity and failure at communication. I felt very bad for both Dave and Minerva, who are both very kind people, and tried their best to accommodate with Susie. What's more concerning is Jake and Susie tried to manipulate me into thinking they did nothing wrong while blaming Dave. Jake eventually realized his mistake and asked that we have a discussion in our next session. TLDR, we learned about a prophecy which tells us everything that we need to do, despite the DM promising us the campaign will no longer be railroaded. DM and his wife brought their 8-year-old daughter to play without asking us. DM gets mad at the hosts for trying to figure out what meal to cook for his pregnant wife. 4 days before session 12, Jake calls me on my phone. We talk a bit about what happened on the group chat. Jake tells me that he plans to apologize to Dave and Minerva. He also said to me that there is a valid reason that explains why he acted like that, and he will tell us as well. Then our discussion shifts on the last one-shot session we played on Discord. The one which ended in a TPK when we attacked a group of orcs in a fort. We all told him, except Susie, that he was too harsh and arbitrary as a DM. Jake, I've questioned myself a lot, to the point I have even considered that I did something wrong, but I'm pretty sure the problem isn't me. Let me explain why. He then proceeds to tell me that he talked to some of his friends. He described them the scenario of the fort we had to invade, and then he let those people elaborate a plan. According to him, all of these plans were better than ours. He even asked the other group, and they had the exact same plan as their daughters. Yeah, right. Jake, OP, when I described to the other group what you and the other players have done, they all made fun of you. F him. F this guy. For the first time ever, I finally realized that this guy is a massive piece of shit. Edit. Of course I knew something was off about Jake since the beginning of the campaign. Of course, I knew I should have left long ago. However, I really, really wanted this campaign to work. Now that I think about it, I was probably suffering from the sunk cost fallacy. Jake and Susie were very good at making us feel guilty and making it look like everything was our fault. At this point, me, Joe, Connor, Dave, and Minerva have even become friends outside of the game, so it helped us to tolerate Jake and Susie. Also, all of us were invested in this campaign since the beginning. Therefore, it became harder and harder to acknowledge that we needed to stop. That's why we put up with all of this for so long. I remained calm nonetheless. Me, what do you mean they made fun of us? Jake, well, your plan sucked, and when you fought, you've made a lot of mistakes. For instance, OP, you put yourself in danger when it comes to positioning. You put yourself at risk too many times. Me, I had sanctuary on me though. Jake, true, but it didn't prevent that barbarian orcs from attacking you. Me, well, I didn't expect those barbarian orcs to succeed their wisdom saving throw every time. Mind you, I am level 4 with 20 intelligence. That means the wisdom saving throw difficulty to ignore my sanctuary is 15. I can also protect myself with the spell Shield to raise my AC by 5 points. Unfortunately, every orc who attacked me managed to hit me despite those things. Those orcs were all homebrewed, built like barbarian PCs, and all of them were individually stronger than any of us. There were at least 15 of them. Me, what do you think the main difference between our group and the other one is? Jake, they listen to each other, and each of them know what to do and how to play their character. I don't remember if I said it earlier, but this group is composed by Jake's longtime friends. They originally met on Final Fantasy XIV and played a lot together on it. No wonder they do better than us, since they have already had years of experience playing as a team. Plus, 2 of them were already experienced players when it comes to D&D. I tried to remind Jake that this group is already accustomed to play together. Even though they are better than us, our experience shouldn't be the same. As a DM, he has to acknowledge that we are not the same. Unfortunately, for me, he doesn't listen. Maybe this group, if they agree, could record one of their fights and send it to us so we can watch and learn. Jake, nah, we can't, because I don't want to spoil the story for you guys. But they are 2 years ahead of us, right? How can you be so sure it would be spoiling? Jake, their next encounter is very important for the plot, so you guys will probably have this encounter as well, eventually. At this point, I know for sure he lied to my face when he promised this game would not be railroaded anymore. If you can tell the same thing will happen to us despite having 2 years gap in our campaigns with the other group, that can only mean the campaign will keep being railroaded. This is not D&D, nor an adventure, but a movie in which we are actors without a script. And Jake is not a DM, but some kind of toxic manager who has some weird expectations. Jake. Anyway, I will take the opportunity to tell each of you guys what you did wrong in the next session. Have you told everyone beforehand? Jake. No. I think you should post a message on the group chat so everyone will know what your intentions are. Jake. Okay, fair enough. The phone call ends a few minutes later. The next day, Jake posts a message on the group chat. I still have them on my phone, so allow me to translate them for you. Jake. Hello. I took the time to analyze the last sessions, especially the last one. I took notes, wrote, asked questions, questioned myself a lot. On Sunday, I will give you my feedback on this. Be careful. I'm warning you now. It's not going to be pleasant to hear. Dave. No! Are you questioning yourself, Jake? Are you sure? Isn't that more of a Tasha's hideous laughter that you're trying to cast on us? Susie. Let's say this is the moment where I'm going to disappear to the bathroom for about 15 minutes. Dave. What do you mean? Susie. Well, I know he's not going to be nice, and I don't want to hear it again. Dave. He has the right to contradict me, but on one condition. Can he tell me on which point he questioned himself exactly? At least I know I'm stubborn. Does he? Susie. Well, I saw the file he wrote. He has examined, noted, and explained everything. Anyway, if there is no questioning of the group, it's TPK to Watermark during the second fight at the latest. To add some context, it's been at least 5 months. Both Susie and Jake keep telling us that we are not ready for the second fight that will happen in Watermark. Susie also kept telling us that if her character dies, she will not make another one. Edit. Susie was basically a Trojan horse. I truly regret that we accepted her in our group. Ever since she has joined us, she always sided with Jake. Every time each of us tried to talk to Jake, she was always there. Most of the time participating in the conversation, as if she was a co-DM, or even helping Jake to dismiss our concerns. But the most frustrating thing is she never failed to remind us she will not make a new character if she dies. She did say that to us rather than to Jake, as if she was threatening us, failing to realize Jake is the one who refused to adapt to us and lower the difficulty of the campaign. This led to putting even more pressure on us. Edit. Another major thing I remember is that a few weeks before, at my initiative, we created a shared document, an encyclopedia-like, in which we summarized the whole story, the NPCs we met, and the knowledge we had about the plot. Why? Because Jake told us many times there are a lot of secrets, informations, and hints in the stories that we need to remember, and you will not help us or remind them to us. According to him, it was our responsibility to remember things and discover the secrets and figure things out by ourselves. This is why we felt the need to create this document. Me, Dave, Minerva, and Connor tried our best to share our knowledge and information. Susie and Joe barely participated, and Jake read it once, only to say that a lot of things were missed. What was missing? He didn't tell us. Today, as I am writing this, I feel so disheartened and angry about how much we tried to engage with this campaign, with a DM that was so toxic, garbage, and dismissive. We deserved better than this. Eventually, we all agreed to have a serious discussion about the campaign the next time we meet. That's also where Joe told us he will not be able to come this day to play. One day before session 12, Dave and Minerva call me. Both of them feel bad and want to know my opinion. Dave is still pissed at Jake and wants to confront Jake. Minerva, on the other hand, is afraid that everyone gets angry. She thinks we should cancel the session and have a discussion online instead with everyone. I told them that this is a good opportunity to sit down and have a clear discussion about our expectations for the campaign. As long as everyone remained calm, everything should be fine. I then told Dave that if either him or Jake become angry and start shouting, I will leave instantly. Of course, I will tell Jake the same tomorrow. Dave then told me he has an idea. He would like to try DMing once, but he doesn't know how to do this. Dave, look, even if Jake and Susie leave, 5 of us would still remain. Maybe we should do this if our discussion with Jake turns sour. We agree on this and end this call with the idea that the campaign might end the next day. Edit. I forgot to mention that Minerva even cried during this call because she was frustrated and confused. She was planning to multi-class into a cleric once we reached level 5. It had been at least 4 to 5 months that Jake agreed to it, until he recently decided otherwise and told her that he will not allow her to multi-class because her monk will become useless, completely disregarding the fact that she wrote a lot of pages of lore to justify this multi-classing. Her character was not even a real one, in my opinion. She was basically playing an NPC from Jake's campaign, a hero, an amnesiac from the past. TLDR, DM has supposedly questioned himself and tells the group to question themselves instead. One player gets mad. Everyone is frustrated. The campaign is on the bridge of being ended. Session 12. We arrive at Dave and Minerva's house. I remember this moment perfectly because I was stressed out. Joe didn't come to play, and Connor was a bit confused about the whole situation. I could tell Dave and Minerva were tense. Usually, we all sit at the game table and start eating and chit-chatting. But not this time. Both of them were standing in front of the table, arms crossed, looking at Jake and Susie. On the other hand, Jake and Susie behaved as if everything was cool. They were joking together as if nothing had happened. Susie, what's wrong, Dave and Minerva? Have a seat. Both of them were silent. They looked at each other, then Dave responded. Dave, I think we should talk about you-know-what. Jake agreed and apologized to both Dave and Minerva. He acknowledged that his behavior was toxic. He then proceeded to explain why he behaved the way he did. He has autism. I'm sorry, but that is not an excuse. Jake, if I seem like a jerk sometimes, it's because I have autism. I'm constantly learning how to behave with others. Then he proceeded to remind us about what happened with the group he was kicked from as a player. He felt betrayed and was upset that some people he thought were friends tried to get rid of Susie. They just didn't want her sitting there. He also struggles at work with his superior, who seems to lack empathy when he needs to check in with her or leave work early. That's why he always gets upset when it comes to Susie. We understood. Dave and Minerva accepted his apology, but the discussion wasn't over. We wanted to talk about the campaign as well. We asked Jake to clarify his expectations. We also told him that if our expectations were mismatched, maybe it was time to end the campaign. Jake didn't want to stop the campaign. According to him, everything was fine. We just needed to get more accustomed to the game and its rules. Are you serious right now? That is not what's going on here. Me, are you sure, Jake? It sounds like you have a specific idea about how you want to run a campaign. Maybe we're just not compatible. Jake, no, I think it's fine. He only thinks it's fine because he's been, railroading them. Me, we don't like how difficult the encounters are. Could you make them a bit easier? Jake, no, I don't have time for that. Susie is pregnant, and we already have a kid to take care of. Plus, this is how I have fun. If the encounters aren't interesting, it's not fun for me to play. No, what he means is that if it's not murdering the players, it is not fun to play. And why do they use children as his excuse every time? I have children. They are not an excuse. Dave, then it's a mismatch. We should end it here. Jake, no. Once you learn how to play your characters properly, you'll see that the encounters are perfectly doable. No, they are not. Me, and what if we don't learn the way you expect? Connor, maybe we should just play until we have a TPK. Once we die, we can end the campaign. Jake, okay, let me tell you this. If the party is close to a TPK, I'll use a joker to prevent it. Unfortunately, that convinced us to keep playing. No! I remembered that I wasn't convinced because I knew it didn't address the root problem, Jake's refusal to scale his campaign to our needs. But Jake and Susie managed to convince Minerva, Dave, and Connor. So I followed the group, ignoring my own instinct because I was still hopeful that it could work. I am aware that was stupid. Jake also promised us that everyone would get a spotlight in the form of a character arc during the campaign. Mine was supposed to happen right after the events in Watermark, but Jake decided Susie's arc would be played first for plot purposes and because she was pregnant. I thought that Susie was done like 5 sessions ago. Edit. Of course, I confronted Jake about it later during a phone call, reminding him that he told me months ago that my arc was supposed to be played first, and I even pointed out his inconsistency and favoritism. He answered that Susie had a role to fulfill. It would not be as relevant in the future. Since she will be less available once the baby is born, he wants to play her arc first. Susie, who is also there, helped Jake dismiss my concerns, saying that my character will get the spotlight eventually. As we continued the discussion, we grew curious about Jake's experience as a DM. In 10 years, had he ever managed to finish a campaign? The answer was no. The worst part was he told us crazy stories. One group ended their campaign when they liberated the Lich and the zombie dragon alongside Jackie. Wait, so that means like every single group is going through the same story? One of the players, fed up with the campaign, jumped into the dragon's mouth to kill his character. That's so funny. Jake got so mad that he ripped the character sheet in front of him. Oh my goodness. Another group ended after Watermark's arc. They didn't make the right decisions or do what Jake expected, so they ended up fighting an impossible-to-win encounter. It ended in disaster and they had to flee the city. Another group rage quit because they got punished for killing an NPC who tried to rob them. The NPC's lover ambushed the group and killed the PC responsible for his death. They complained about the unfairness because Jake didn't give them a chance to prevent or anticipate the ambush. Jake, they never asked for a perception check, so it's their fault. I'm sorry, but DMs are supposed to ask you to do a perception check. We didn't react at the time, but those were definitely red flags. Yes, they were the brightest of red. I would be waving the flag in front of your faces. We all agreed to play session 12, and we did. Nothing much happened. We traveled on Jackie's ship toward Watermark. Susie and Jackie made fun of most of our characters in-game, alongside Susie's pet, a cat insert, which seemed more important to them than our PCs. Also, Susie's character fell in love with Jackie. Oh, 'cause it's self-inserts. Edit. During the session, or the previous session, I don't remember, I confronted the magical armor, asking it to stop calling me a buffoon. I tried to explain why I felt insulted and needed for equality and respect. You see, Jake explained to us that because the magical armor is 800 years old, and in its mind Connor is its squire, and I am the buffoon. That's why I tried to have this discussion, trying to explain that the armor that we live in is a different time, and calling someone buffoon is an insult. The magical armor refused and kept calling me buffoon. Frustrated, I insulted it back. Jake made the armor spirit pissed, and it vanished for a few days in-game, basically nerfing Connor's character because he was the one wearing it and using its power. At the time, I felt guilty and apologized to the group. Susie made fun of me, saying I had probably -2 in wisdom in real life and had a big ego. God, she's being a bitch. Now that I think about it, it was nonsense and unfairness from Jake once again, and knowing him most certainly took pleasure to call me like that. Also, Susie can go screw herself. Yes, she can. Right now, it feels like Jake just likes to bully everybody. Session 13. Susie was 7 months pregnant by this point. She stayed at home while everyone else went to Dave and Minerva's house. We offered Jake the option to run the session online so he could stay with Susie, but he refused. So he came to play in real life with us, and we used a mic and camera to play with Susie. We finally arrived at Watermark, but there was an issue. Watermark was under lockdown for political reasons. Of course it was. Our characters had no way to enter. As we tried to find a solution, we ended up in an isolated tavern where the tavern owner offered to produce passes for each of us for 3,000 gold. Obviously, we didn't have that kind of money. Eventually, we met a noble and his bodyguard. The noble was about to enter Watermark and needed protection. We Before we could get hired, the tavern was suddenly attacked by a group of assassins who set it on fire by shooting fire arrows. The fight began, and we rolled initiative. We broke out of the tavern and barricaded ourselves with tables, firing back at the attackers with arrows and spells. 2 NPCs tried to help, but one of them was drunk, and the other fumbled his attack and destroyed his crossbow. The noble and his bodyguard, apparently a level 5 fighter, remained hidden inside the tavern. We managed to kill 3 thugs in 2 turns. Connor rushed forward to force the enemies into close combat. Then we realized we were being attacked by an invisible enemy. This enemy seemed incredibly powerful. 1 attack, a second, then a third. How can he attack 3 times? Like, is that... I guess fighter can do that once they hit a certain level, but that's like a super high level. Oh, I see. He can attack 3 times in a turn. Someone managed to spot him with a perception check. He was one of the BBEG's henchmen, a very powerful assassin. The issue? He was a level 14 Battlemaster fighter. I kind of figured that out. And we were only level 4. That... I don't even think you're supposed to be making... Like, NPCs have their own stat block. Why is he making every single one a PC? Jake, at this point, you know he's here to assassinate the noble, right? You have to stop him. Dave, yeah, but how? He's way too strong for us. Jake didn't respond. We tried to attack him. All of our attacks missed. We attempted to make him do saving throws. Intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, all of them failed. Joe managed to hit him with an arrow, but Jake implied the boss was resistant to piercing damage. He had at least 19 AC. I then used Magic Missile, since all of our attacks had missed. I dealt a bit of damage, but Jake told us the boss had 120 HP. When his turn came, Jake looked at me with a smile. Jake, OP, you can tell he's really pissed at you, that you managed to hit him. You can feel his gaze on you. He then delivered 3 attacks towards me with a longbow. I dodged them all thanks to my shield spell and being behind cover. Jake, you see him jump out of hiding. He drops his longbow and draws 2 swords. He rushes towards the noble. Connor, how are we supposed to beat him? He's level 14. Jake didn't respond and just stared at us smiling until it was someone else's turn. The boss was now close to the noble. I tried to restrain him with Maximilian's earthen grasp, but I failed. Jake, huge mistakes. He proceeded to unleash 4 attacks on my character. I was down to 2 HP. Wait, can you get up to 4 attacks? Someone needs to tell me this. I don't play fighter, I play rogue. And I swear, fighter does not get 4 attacks. Well, I guess it's level 14. Like, it could be possible, but I thought it was only 2. Someone tell me. When it was the bodyguard's turn, Jake intervened and told Dave, Jake, protect the noble. I'll handle the assassin myself. The powerful bodyguard rushed toward the assassin. Jake looked at me smiling. Me, cool, I might survive after all. Jake, as he rushes toward the assassin, he grabs your character and throws you into the burning tavern. He's so strong that he sends you flying several meters. You take 3 bludgeoning damage. Wait, what the fuck? I'm sorry, what? How can... meters? Okay, a meter is a little over 3 feet, right? Can you actually be that strong? Wouldn't that be like closer to over 20 strength? To throw a heavy character? Ugh. No, cancel. Me, what? But why? Jake, because your positioning was terrible. Me, can't you just push the assassin or something? Jake, no, you were in his way. Nobody would just throw somebody like that. Me, I'm down then. I only had 2 HP left. That was the first time I'd been knocked out in the campaign, and by an allied NPC, no less. For the first time in years, I felt an emotion I thought I'd never feel again. Depression. This campaign felt miserable, my character felt miserable, and I felt miserable. I looked at Jake again. This piece of garbage was smiling. You appear to be a jerk because of autism, I thought. No, you are a jerk, regardless of your autism. I rolled my first death save and succeeded. At this point, I wanted my character to die so I could leave the campaign for good. However, Dave and Minerva decided to take huge risks to save me with a healing potion. But by doing so, they left Susie and the noble vulnerable. Susie, why am I alone against the boss? Dave, what are you doing? Dave, well, I'm saving OP. And that's when Jake completely lost it. Jake, Dave, you screwed up again. The bodyguard told you to protect the noble. Dave lost it as well. Dave, I wanted to save the OP. Jake, if the noble dies, this campaign is screwed. Do you realize that? You were given clear instructions. Why didn't you follow them? Dave, we haven't even been hired by him yet, so I prioritized my teammates. The game resumed. This guy is an ass. We eventually surrounded the boss, but almost all of our attacks failed. The bodyguard even fumbled his attack and dropped his sword. Jake, well, I guess I have no choice but to use a joker. I can't believe you guys forced me to do this. Dave's patron, the soul of the Holy Emperor, took control of his body. He gained a slight bonus with his damage and 50 temporary hit points. Dave, well, I guess Jake, no. Now your character is under my control. Roll an attack with advantage. Dave, okay, that's a 3. It misses. Once again. Jake, that's fine. Roll again. You have advantage. Dave, honestly, this is so unfair. Almost all of our attacks have failed. Jake, roll the dice. Dave rolled a 19, which was a crit since he had activated the Hexblade's curse. The boss drank a potion and vanished into thin air. Really? Jake has some issues. The fight was over. Jake and Dave were furious. Minerva was about to cry. I was utterly disappointed, and Connor was confused. Only Joe seemed to be having fun for some reason. Edit. Joe managed to throw shades of glass in the assassin's eyes. Jake praised him, saying that's what he wants to see. However, as the discussion continued, I knew Jake was planning to punish Joe once it was the assassin's turn, but Dave made him flee before, thanks to his critical hit. We decided to end the session. Jake, this is such a mess. I'm pissed off that I'm not with my wife right now. They gave you the option. We talked about the encounter. Dave and Jake blamed each other. When it became clear the conversation was going nowhere, we all eventually left the house. Jake told us that the next fight would be even tougher, and that he had no intention of lowering the difficulty. What is up with this guy taking squishy PCs and then making big Hulk boss NPCs made as PCs to fight them? Edit. Dave eventually contacted all the players to discuss about the last fight and make collective feedback to Jake with the clear intent to tell him everything that we think about the way he handled this campaign. However, when Susie told Jake, he contacted me. Jake, hi, I heard during a conversation with Susie that Dave wants to organize a call to discuss what went wrong during the last fight, and he wants to give me feedback about it. The funny thing is, he made a fatal mistake that affected the group and isn't questioning himself. It drives me crazy. You drive me crazy. I was mentally exhausted by this campaign, so I stayed neutral. I knew it was completely pointless since we were already tried once. Eventually, Jake managed to shut down Dave's attempt. At that point, I decided to leave, but I wouldn't leave alone. The next part will be the last one. TLDR, DM apologized for his toxic behavior outside of the game, but remains rigid when it comes to the game. Frustrations peak as DM refuses to lower the campaign's difficulty, and the majority of the group becomes disillusioned after a difficult fight. The campaign is about to end. June 2024. I asked the opinions of many people on the internet, DMs on Discord groups, on Reddit. I even tried to learn about DMing on YouTube. This is when I learned a lot of things such as CR, challenge rating, player agency, railroading, and so on. I realized Jake had done everything wrong and failed to properly introduce us to D&D. He never cared about us learning at our own pace. He only cared about himself. This so-called veteran DM is a massive fraud. I called him and tried to hold him accountable for knocking me down with an ally NPC. He made me think about the whole fight again. Basically, his point was Dave didn't play like he was supposed to with his Hexblade character, so that was his fault. Dave didn't even want to be a Hexblade. It is true that Dave is extremely afraid of losing his PC. He only has 13 AC. That's why he refuses to take any risks. So he fights most of the time with his Eldritch Blast instead of his two-handed sword. This puts the entire group under pressure because he doesn't use his character to its full extent. However, I know what Jake did. He deflected any criticism I had towards Dave, but this time I refused to let him manipulate me. So I pressed him once again and tried to make him respond for what he did to me. Dave could be the worst player in the world, but that still doesn't explain why he arbitrarily knocked me out with an ally NPC. Jake, actually, I've been a bit absent-minded lately. Susie and I are constantly busy because the baby is arriving in a few weeks. You'll understand when you become a father. This bitch is gaslighting. I'm pretty sure this is gaslighting. Let me know if I'm wrong. I genuinely started to hate Jake and his behavior. He will never acknowledge any kind of responsibility, but I remained calm and didn't show that I was pissed. Moving forward, I sent him a text message, telling him straight up that I asked the opinions of many DMs on Discord, Reddit, even acquaintances who play Pathfinder 2.0, and so on. All of them gave negative feedback. They told me the challenge rating in the last encounter was far too unbalanced, especially if the players had never experienced such difficulty before. His response? Allow me to translate. Jake: yes, absolutely. I know the CR very well. But the goal wasn't to kill the NPC. This NPC wasn't there to die. I didn't use all of their abilities. The goal for me is to control an NPC who is a bit of a jack of all trades so I can respond to what you're doing. Other DMs may not know this, but there's a big difference between CR and character level. I think the DMs you asked are very experienced. Don't pay attention to the CR. Assume that I know your characters. Therefore, facing this assassin didn't use all of his abilities was possible. The goal was to make him flee. You're supposed to use CR. No, Jake, you fraud. I thought we didn't know this NPC was supposed to flee when we played. He didn't use all of his abilities, yet he made 4 attacks against me in one turn, and even used a trip attack. We tried to knock him prone, restrain him. Connor tried to duel him with his compelled duel. I tried to lower his defense with the Mind Sliver. Absolutely no saving throw worked. The goal of a DM is to ensure that players feel challenged, but also capable of success, and you failed to do so. Again, he dismissed my feedback, and even had the nerve to call all the other DMs I talked to inexperienced. This is crazy. At this point, I was done. This guy will never change. However, I didn't want the group to explode, or remain hostage to Jake and Susie once I left. The best outcome would be to get rid of those two, and make one of us the new DM. Session 14 will happen in July, so we will have almost 1 month of a break. So I've decided to run sessions with the other players in order to learn how to play as a team, and help those who were still struggling with the rules and mechanics. I did not hide anything from Jake. I planned to make these sessions on Foundry, but since I don't own it, Jake offered to let me do this on his. But first, he had to teach me how to use it. Jake, I will call you tomorrow so we can decide together when to do this. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and 4 days later, I was still waiting for him to call me. I could have called him, but I didn't want him to lecture me again with his adult life and parenting that you'll understand once you have a kid bullshit, so I took matters into my own hands. I bought Foundry myself and learned how to use it on my own. The issue was the D&D module is empty unless I was willing to spend even more money to get all the content available for D&D 5th. So, we used character sheets when we played on it. I invited everyone, but not Susie. I realized how much damage Jake has done to us. When I made them face the encounters, I saw how much they were afraid, indecisive, and overthinking. This was a result of months of pressure, punishment, and blaming. I eventually managed to encourage them to be more confident in their capabilities. I convinced Dave to be less afraid of going into melee with his Hexblade. Joe really struggled with the rules, and I suspect he has either undiagnosed dyscalculia or ADHD. So we created cheat sheets with Joe, using flashcards, to help him. That is a good idea. I like how he's helping them. How OP is sitting here and helping every single one, figuring out their weaknesses and their strengths and pushing them to learn how to maneuver around them. They are gonna be a good DM, which I do know that after this there is another story by this Reddit user about their first DM session. Overall, the team became a lot stronger, and everyone knows how to use flanking, how to kill a strong boss quickly, and so on. July 2024. Before we meet up, we asked Jake once more to stay with Susie. We don't mind playing online at all, but he refuses again. And then he sends us this voice message. Jake, concerning Susie, it's not a joke, poor thing. It's a struggle to wash and get up. It's very complicated. I feel like I'm constantly repeating this sentence. No, I don't know when the baby is coming. Yes, I still close to my wife because potentially she can give birth. I don't know when, but she can. I don't like this guy. I replied with a text message. Me, hi, based on your message, Jake, I think it's better to do it remotely in any case. That way we don't worry, and you stay with Susie. Susie, it's okay. I'm sending him to you so I can breathe a little. He's just gonna complain about it. We know it is. Me. I would like to insist that we do it remotely, because it clearly affects Jake negatively. Moreover, he said it several times himself at the end of the previous session. I quote, "It pisses me off not to be with my pregnant wife." Jake. Clearly, yes, but for the moment, it's okay. And then it makes her feel good not to see my face for a day, or 2, or 10. Dave. I agree with you, OP. Minerva and I were thinking the same thing. This is not to criticize you, Jake, but to clarify. I received a private voice message from Jake. Jake, you are right about what you said. I'm coming because this is potentially the last session, so I need to take my stuff back if the campaign ends. I'm tired of Dave's criticism toward me. I'm tired of him pushing the group down. So if what happens last time happens again, I'll put an end to this. We eventually agreed to let Jake come to play with us, leaving Susie behind. I could have left right there, but I wanted to see the results of our training sessions before I left. Session 14 begins. The noble, who plans to run for president in Watermark, hires us for 2,500 gold. Our job is to protect him for 3 days, since he has a lot of enemies. I thought we deserved more, especially when Watermark's future was at stake, and also because Susie will need 1,000 gold when her arc begins. Jake, your character knows this noble is a good person, and since he is neutral good, he shouldn't ask for more money. Me, but I remember you told me alignment doesn't matter. Jake, it does matter in this case. Never forget that your character is neutral good. He can recognize this noble has good intentions, so we will gladly help him. I hate how he tells them how their character will react. Me, well, to be honest, I highly doubt my character is still neutral good at this point, especially after he was forced to trade a city and its citizens, a lich, and a dragon zombie for a pirate ship. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. We escorted the noble to his manor house, then we searched for allies in Watermark. That's when we found a very powerful NPC, a Leonin barbarian. He hires us to deal with some drug trafficking in the city-state. That's right, it was the same mission we did in the one-shot session we played 7 months ago. The warehouse. The session ends just before we start the fight. Jake notices that Joe was much more comfortable and much faster with the game mechanics and dice rolls than usual. Joe, well, it's thanks to OP. We made cheat sheets together. Jake, yeah, but we spent some hours too when I tried to help you, remember? Joe, yeah, but we found a solution with OP. I was observing Jake and his reaction. I waited for him to at least thank me or address the fact that I did a better job than him at helping Joe. Of course he didn't. At this point, I knew who I was dealing with. What's really concerning is Jake didn't seem to be happy that Joe was no longer struggling as much. Before session 15 started, I called all the other players, except Susie. I told them that I was going to leave regardless of what happens during this session. I could have incited them to leave with me, but I didn't. I knew it was only a matter of time before this campaign falls apart. Edit. Another thing that Jake did that really pissed me off and definitely set my mind on leaving the campaign no matter what is that he chose that moment to make Minerva play a completely new character 4 days before the session, completely disregarding the fact that I told him many times to do this after the warehouse encounter. You see, Minerva was frustrated with her character for months, because she couldn't put herself in the character's shoes, because they weren't her shoes, they were Jake's. And since he refused to allow her to multi-class, she was done. I think the reason is obvious. Her character was basically an NPC from Jake's story, a hero from the past. She couldn't like this character because it never truly belonged to her. Anyway, she was now playing a homebrew warrior that none of us knew how it was working, even Jake himself since he just created. Of course, completely unbalanced. Not only did I feel he sabotaged our training sessions, he also added more pressure on us during the warehouse encounter. Minerva cried during our call with me and Dave when we tried to figure out together how her new character worked, basically doing Jake's job at this point, because she feared she could not play well and was completely lost. Eventually, she asked Jake to make a single session with her so she could learn with him, and he agreed. Session 15 begins. This time, we all played remotely, on Foundry. The Leonin barbarian was nearby, observing and analyzing our group to see if we were capable enough, and how we dealt with the encounter. It had been clearly stated by Jake that he was not supposed to help us. We used almost the same strategy. Susie and Joe were positioned on the roof of the warehouse. This time, we broke the lock on the back door of the warehouse and attacked from the front. I think this encounter was identical to the one we did back then, 7 months ago in the one-shot session, probably a bit harder. We had to fight a whole group of enemies. There were at least 16 of them, spies, thugs, bandit, captains, swashbucklers, and so on. There was the same boss as before. a very strong fighter, or barbarian, who could reflect any damage done to him. One thing I was certain of, this fight was way harder than the one we had against the assassin. And guess what? We fought exceptionally well. With teamwork and flanking, we defeated one enemy after another. We even managed to make the boss drop his weapons, thanks to Connor's command spell. And because we put him at disadvantage with his wisdom saving throw due to Dave's hex spell, homebrewed by Jake, we were all happy, but only Jake seemed bothered. Yeah, because he wants to kill you pretty much. Jake, I am checking if Connor's spell works on this boss. Connor, he failed his wisdom saving throw, so I assume it does. Jake, yeah, but this boss is under a charm spell, so it might not work. I knew what he was doing, and I wasn't going to let him. Maybe we can find the answer in the spell itself. What does it say? Jake ignored me. Jake, it doesn't work on him. The boss is under a charm. Me. No, Jake. I'm sorry, but no. The spell has no effect if the target is undead, if it doesn't understand your language, or if your command is directly harmful to it. That's what the rules say. It doesn't say anything about the target being charmed. So it works. Susie, that's a beautiful combo. You should allow it. Jake, okay. The boss will drop his weapon and skip his turn when its next turn comes. Then came Susie's turn, and she managed to restrain the boss with a net arrow. The boss was now prone and restrained, and he would drop his weapons on his next turn. At this point, the fight was won. This would be our first victory since the campaign began. Jake was silent for a moment. Then he said, Jake, you see the boss transforming. The black aura surrounding him is taking over. The boss token suddenly becomes some huge archangel. Everyone, what? Yeah, the boss transformed into an archangel. I don't know if it was a solar or a planetar, probably a homebrewed version of the planetar, but what the F? This makes no sense. We discovered that later, that the warehouse was connected to the BBEG, but still. Dave, are we fighting a planetar or something? How are we supposed to fight that? Mind you, we are still level 4. Me, what happened? Why did he transform into that? Jake, this is a transformation that only happens when the boss is restrained and drops his weapons. I swear to God, that's the explanation he gave us. I still can't believe how crazy it sounds. Does he really think we can't see he pulled that out of his ass? Me, oh really? Jake, yeah, no one else ever managed to make him transform. You are the first. Is this guy serious? Me, okay, and what do you expect us to do? Obviously, there's nothing we could do against a planetar. Jake didn't respond. Everyone was confused. Even Susie had no idea what Jake expected of us. Me, no seriously, Jake, what do you expect us to do? Jake, don't worry. Then came Connor's turn. Connor, I asked my magical armor for advice. What does it think? Jake, the armor responds that you will die if you fight this planetar. Susie, I guess it's time to flee. Connor, okay, Then Jake made the magical armor take control of Connor's character. He transformed, got better stats, but he could do nothing but attack. The same thing happened with Dave. The Holy Emperor took control of Dave's character once more. He could do nothing but roll his dice for attacks. But Dave was not pleased at all. I wouldn't be either. At this point, they're not even playing their characters. Dave, I've already said I don't want to be controlled. Can I make a check to regain control of my character? Jake, fine. Make a charisma saving throw. The DC is 25. Dave rolled an 18. Thanks to his charisma bonus and proficiency, he hits 25. Dave, okay, now we help Connor regain control and we leave this place. Jake, you fucked up again. You guys are supposed to kill this boss. Dave, but you said earlier with the magical armor that we would die if we fought him. Jake, just because one NPC says something doesn't mean it's true. You need to be able to think for yourselves. Silence. Dave, I'll make some tea. I'll be back. There was so much anger in Dave's voice, I could feel it in my spine. Was I angry? No. Since I had already decided to leave, this just solidified my choice. However, I was bitter that all those training sessions were ruined by Jake's DM versus player mentality. Jake is a shitty DM, and that's all. We couldn't even hit the planetar because he had 21 AC. Eventually, when it became clear we were going to die, Jake made the planetar explode. That's how our last fight ended. We went from being engaged and excited to bitter and frustrated when the planetar came along. What the hell was Jake thinking? We started arguing about what happened. Once again, Jake refused any accountability for the way he handled this encounter. He blamed us for not understanding. He blamed us for not calling the Leonin Barbarian NPC for help, even though he told us not to expect any help from him before the fight begins. He blamed us for not having basic logic. Me. Even Susie didn't understand what you expected of us. Are you saying she lacks basic logic as well? Jake, well no, that's because she failed a perception check. Otherwise she would have known what to do. Me, yeah, sure. I pressed Jake on his decision to transform the boss. Me, why did you do that? You've complained for a year that we didn't fight well enough, and now that we do, you punish us for it. Jake, no. That's because you accumulated too much control over him. Me, so we had to fight effectively, but not too much? Jake, more or less, yes. And thus, I announced to the group that I was leaving the campaign. Did I confront Jake or tell him everything I thought of him? No, I didn't. I regret not yelling at him or insulting him on one hand, but on the other hand, I know it's pointless. So I just left. The other players didn't say anything, since I knew I was going to leave. However, I didn't expect a domino effect to happen. Connor texted me the next day, saying he was planning to leave as well. 3 days later, Dave called everyone and announced he was leaving. Jake then put a definitive end to the campaign. And this is how this miserable campaign finally ended. Strangely enough, nobody left the group chat because everyone expected Susie to keep us in touch with the birth of their child. Epilogue, August 2024. 2 weeks later, Susie gave birth to their daughter. I also announced that I would try to run a campaign as a DM. I invited Joe, Connor, Dave, and Minerva to play. We would eventually create a new group without Jake and Susie. September 2024. I messaged Jake. Me, hi Jake. I'm writing to let you and Susie know that we will no longer be using our shared group. We decided to create a new D&D group and start from scratch. As for me, I want to turn the page on this campaign. In any case, I hope all is well on your side. Jake, hi. Okay, I cut off all your Foundry access and I'll leave all the groups that connect us to on my side. I will contact Minerva to collect my belongings. I already knew he would react like that, and I don't mind. I just needed to cut ties officially with this guy. I'm glad this is finally over. Our session 0, another thing Jake didn't do, happens tomorrow, and I want our experience to be anything but that. I hope we will have fun and make a cool and interesting collaborative story together. Making those posts definitely helped me move on from that terrible experience. But the most important thing is that it allows me to remember everything that I absolutely must not do during my campaign. TLDR, after a frustrating campaign led by an unresponsive and manipulative DM, I sought advice, tried to improve team dynamics, and ultimately decided to leave the group. This led to a domino effect where other players also departed, resulting in the campaign's end and the formation of a new group, hopefully focused on collaboration and fun. Edit. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. I had to realize something terrible. Jake and Susie were not the only problem. The whole group was, myself included. I ended my campaign in February 2025 and lost the people I thought were my friends. This sucks for him, or her. I'm honestly unsure if it's a girl or a guy. But I do know that I feel really bad. I know that we will be having another long episode with their next story, and I hope you all will be enjoying that one too. There's a lot of stuff about this Jake character, and I made a lot of comments in the middle of the story because I was trying not to make comments, but it got so bad that I just had to. He was so bad. I'm just gonna say this. I'm sorry that he has autism, but I do feel like autism is not an excuse to be such an ass. Like, I think his whole thing was trying to literally kill them. He wanted them to do everything exactly the way he wanted, when he wanted, how he wanted, where he wanted, and didn't tell them any of that information, and then got mad when they did something that he didn't want them to do, and then gave them bad things. I can't word that right, but like when the OP got a natural 20 and they got hurt. Are you serious? To me, that just seemed so ridiculous. But this is already a really long video, so I'm gonna cut this short. I hope you all have a wonderful, fantastical day, and that you will comment, like, and subscribe to this channel if you want to watch anything else like this again. Okay, bye.